And in the previous administration, my first term, I rebuilt the military. And that's why we hit Venezuela, tremendous success. As you know, we have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time.
President Trump talking to Larry Kudlow there about the situation in Iran. As you look at a map, the U.S. military assets are now in place, as the president called it, an armada. And now there is word that the president might send a second carrier group into that region as these negotiations with Iran continue. Joining us to talk about the situation in the Middle East, Iran, the midterm elections, and more, one-time presidential candidate, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, and former South Carolina governor, Republican Nikki Haley. She's now the Walter P. Stern Chair at Hudson Institute. Thank you much for being here.
It's great to be with you again, Brett. Thank you.
What is your take on where we stand with Iran? Obviously, these talks are going on in Oman. You've been on the other side of talks with the Iranians many times.
I mean, we can see how this is going to play out. The Iranians are going to meet. They're going to basically say, yes, we will reduce the amount of nuclear production. They'll even say they're not going to do any. They're going to ask for sanction relief, and then they'll probably ask for some money. This is a legacy-defining moment for President Trump. Iran has never been weaker than they are right now. He did a great thing when he did Operation Midnight Hammer and weakened them. He stood with Israel and made sure that we weaken their proxies, and we're trying to get those out of the way. But the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to send all these resources over there and then still have the Iranian regime standing. The key at the end of the day is no nuclear enrichment, no more ballistic missile or drone activity, making sure the Iranian people finally have the freedom that they deserve, and no more money going to their proxies. And Iran's never going to agree to that, and that's why I think the president needs to take his moment and make this a legacy-defining moment.
Yeah, you know, there's skepticism, and obviously always the question, if you break it, you own it, back to Colin Powell, and what comes next on the ground? Is there, if you go in with substantial strikes to go take the head of the snake of the regime away, what comes next? Is there enough on the ground to set up the next Iranian government?
Well, my guess is he's moved all those resources there for a reason. I think they're probably trying to make sure all of the American military troops are safe in the multiple bases in the region. But at the end of the day, what you don't want is to give them a hand to step back up again. We need to, it's all about the regime. If he can go and deal with the regime, that's what needs to happen. If he can go and weaken further the nuclear capabilities that they have, that's what needs to happen. But they need to work closely with Israel on making sure that this is finished. What would be horrible is for President Trump to leave office and Iran once again show that they've been enriching nuclear material, they've been suppressing their people, they've been paying off military proxies. All those things come back up, and all this will be for nothing.
You know, it's not just Democrats raising skepticism. There are some Republicans inside your party that say this is the wrong move, led by forces inside Congress that come from a point of view. Here's Representative Paulina Luna.
Peace through strength means pursuing peace first at all costs. I work with way too many neocons, and I refuse to accept that neocons is the face of this party. I think Nikki Haley found that out the hard way.
She threw that in at the end there, but what's your response?
I think that there's an option. You know, you can either have Obama 2.0, where you negotiate another nuclear deal and give them sanction relief and watch this whole thing happen again, or you can actually be strong and nip this in the bud so that we never have to deal with it again. Call it what you want. It's the right thing to do.
I want to get your sense about the election as it stands ahead of these midterms and take you back to the end of your run for president. You came on Special Report, and this is what you said.
The choice is given. It's either Donald Trump or it's Kamala Harris. And for my family, what I'm looking at is the fact that my daughter says she can't afford groceries. And I look at an economy that's been tough for all of us. I look at my son who's worried about paying rent. With Donald Trump, we know what we're going to get. We lived the economy under Donald Trump. And so I don't agree with Trump 100% of the time, but I don't agree with Kamala Harris on anything.
If you look at the polls now, you have the Fox poll, are you better off financially? Better, 24%, worse, 39%, same, 36%. There is some worry in Republican ranks, Karl Rove, others, about where things stand as you look across the country. Where do you see the election ahead of November?
Well, thank God we didn't get Kamala Harris. I'll say that all day long. But what I will say is there has not been enough focus on the affordability issue for Americans. You still have too many kids living at home. You still have people who can't deal with rent. You see people, they have less money in their wallets, and you can't look at the stock market and say the economy is doing well. We are looking at now $39 trillion in debt. Social Security is going to run out in over 6 years, leaving 75 million Americans having to make a choice. Something needs to be done. This is not, fiscal conservatism has not been talked about at all during this administration. And I think now is the time to focus on the value of a dollar, which is weakening, on how we get more money in Americans' pockets, how we increase jobs, which are flattening, and start to make American people feel like they can have hope. And that's the one thing I want Republicans to really fight for going into the midterms, because if Americans don't feel like there's some hope with their wallets and some hope in raising their families, we will lose.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope inside the administration. Treasury Secretary Bessent, Kevin Hassett, and others saying that Q1 and Q2 on growth is going to be great. But that dichotomy you talk about, how people feel at home, is really the issue. Last thing, voter ID. It seems cut and dry to most Republicans. Democrats seem to be fighting it a bit. Where are you on that?
You know, I passed voter ID when it was like not even a thing in South Carolina, because you should always have to show picture ID to vote. But you should also make sure that we have American citizens are the only ones allowed to register to vote. And for every election, everyone should have to show a picture ID. There is no reason people can't prove who they are. I think that goes to the integrity of the elections, and that goes to the trust of the American people.
And do you think Republicans can pull off this midterm win?
I think they absolutely can pull off a midterm win. We need focus on affordability. We need not a lot of noise, but we need action. Congress needs to get to work, and we need to prove why we deserve to be the leading party coming out of the midterms.
Governor, Ambassador Nikki Haley, thank you so much.
Great to be with you, Brett.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.